Welcome to All Things Moore County, Moore County's weekly radio show highlighting the many facets of the Sandhills. That includes real estate, lifestyle, community and neighborhoods. And now from 4 Properties, here's your host, Bill Sahadi.
Good morning and welcome to the talk show, All Things Moore County. As we enter the fall season, obviously events pick up and we'll be fulfilling a lot of shows detailing a lot of those events. Starting Tuesday, September the 23rd, we're about to kick off the Ruth Pauley lecture series that will extend from the 23rd of September through April the 28th of next year. There are going to be 5 speakers, and we're going to talk a little bit about Ruth Pauley and who she was and how the series sort of came about, because in some ways this was sort of like the TED Talks before there were TED Talks.
That's a good description.
It's true. We've had some very well-known speakers who have been part of the lecture series in the past. Just to name 2, Jack Nicklaus and consumer advocate Ralph Nader.
I had no idea.
They come, right. And all of these events are going to happen at Sandhills Community College, at the Bradshaw Performing Arts Center, and all the lectures will begin at 7 p.m. Every event will include a post-lecture Q&A so that the guests can directly dialogue with the speaker.
Cool.
Yeah. Let me tell you a little bit about Ruth Pauley. Okay. She was born in 1909 and she passed in 1986. And she had moved to Moore County back in 1978, which was a year before I first ever came here to Moore County.
I was 2.
You were 2?
I was 2.
I won't tell you how old I was.
I can guess.
She retired, and she had had a distinguished career in social work, both here in the U.S. and abroad. And she worked and continued working for many professional community interests through numerous volunteer activities. And in 1982, the then Governor Jim Hunt named her Volunteer of the Year of Moore County. After her death in 1986, Dr. Raymond Stone, he was the then president of Sandhills Community College, and Eunice Minton, who was a close friend of Ms. Pauley, they initiated discussions about establishing a memorial to Ruth. And they had a steering committee, and after input from a lot of interested friends of Ruth, a decision was made to honor her establishing a lecture series under her name for the purpose of critical studies of local, state, national, and or world issues. Anything that would be of concern to the citizens of Moore County. That's why I refer to it as the TED Talks before TED Talks were a thing. Right, we're going back. When you think we go back to the 1980s, a lot of us think, oh, we're going back 15, 20 years.
Yeah, the 1980s is getting so far behind me. It's kind of sad.
Yeah, longer than you would have thought.
Yes.
So the mission of the Ruth Pauley speakers is to deepen society's understanding of key issues and encourage public participation in their resolution. And Ruth was a native of Youngstown, Ohio. She was educated, in Ohio public schools. She graduated from Elmira College in New York, and she received her master's from Case Western Reserve University. She started her career with positions in local service agencies and the Social Security Regional Office in Cleveland. She worked in the United Nations Relief and Rehabilitation Administration, serving in Italy and Greece, and the Social Security system, obviously, in Washington, D.C. She was an international consultant, and she also worked in Boston at the regional office of the U.S. Department of Health, Education, and Welfare. We love that she selected Moore County to retire to. Throughout her career, Miss Pawley identified and studied human needs in each community and worked cooperatively with local residents to meet them. She held a firm conviction that women could make special contributions in understanding and bringing about resolution to social problems. She also was ahead of her time. She was deeply committed to the cause of world peace, and in 1983 she chaired a committee working with local Sandhills Community College to organize a series of 6 free lectures by nationally recognized authorities who presented the pros and cons of the arms race. And as it's morphed over time, speakers will present the pros and cons of a lot of different issues. It was very successful, and one thing about the series I will tell you, it is not a fully endowed series, so it must rely on the generosity of local community to support the series through contributions and advertising. The Ruth Pauley Speakers values every contribution, no matter how small. Monies can be raised for these speakers because the committee is responsible for their travel, their transportation, and their lodging. There are 5 different contribution levels, and all of them are tax deductible. The endowers, which are $2,500 and above, the benefactors, $1,500 to $2,500, the contributors from $500 to $1,500, and the supporters or friends anywhere from $1 up to $500. So I've noticed, in Moore County, we have a lot of institutions that people have heard of, but with all the changing demographics, a lot of people who move into the area are not familiar. For instance, the Weymouth Center, for one.
Yeah.
The Ruth Pauley Lecture Series, for another. And we have 5 speakers. And on the 23rd, Dr. Scott Bonn, who we will be speaking to in the second set, is the leadoff speaker, and he will be talking about serial killers and the psychology of true crime. He's a criminologist and a best-selling author, and he's worked in tandem with some high-profile true crime shows, and he's discussing people like Dennis Rader and David Berkowitz, who was well known as Son of Sam.
Wow.
Yeah. You taking notes?
I'm thinking about it, yeah.
Okay.
Luckily, I have this recorded, so I can go back and take notes later.
Okay. Better. Okay, you're smart.
Yeah.
On October
Sometimes.
21st, Lieutenant General John Jack Shanahan will be speaking about artificial intelligence and national security.
Oh, now that sounds like a big topic.
Right?
Yeah.
And he has a talk called AI and the Digital Revolution, and he'll unpack a lot of the opportunities, risks, and the global power shifts driven by emerging technology, and offering an insider's perspective on how innovation is redefining our national security.
Oh, I'm sure it is. Big.
Turn the page, go into 2026, January the 20th. Dr. Diego, and I hope I don't mispronounce his last name, Bojorquez, talks about your gut, your brain, and the next health frontier. He's a neuroscientist and a past TED speaker. Dr. Bojorquez leads groundbreaking research at Duke University, exploring the gut-to-brain connection. And in his presentation, he reveals how gut feelings are rooted in real biology, shaped by newly discovered neuropod cells that communicate directly with the brain. If you can understand what I just said,
I'm going to say.
you don't have to go to the talk.
I might need to bring a dictionary with me for that one.
March 24th, Wendy Young she's the president of Kids in Need of Defense. Wendy's talk will be Standing Up for Children on the Move, and she has been advocating for unaccompanied immigrant children, which should be a very timely subject in our world today.
Yes.
She draws on her work in U.S. policy and global human rights, and she outlines a path forward for compassionate, practical immigration reform, and shares firsthand stories from the front lines. As you can tell, I mean, this is an out there in front issue.
Yes.
Today, and will be when she speaks.
Yes, very much.
Finally, on the 28th of April, Dr. Lindsay Zano is going to be speaking, and she is a paleontologist, and she'll be speaking of the rise of T-Rex.
Oh, fun.
Well, she takes the audience back 66 million years to unearth the untold story of Tyrannus Rex.
Oh, nice.
So that will be for people who have very specific interests in paleontology. But it's a very impressive lineup, and again,
It is.
all the lectures will be taking place at the Bradshaw Performing Arts Center on the campus of Sandhills Community College. All lectures begin at 7 p.m. Tickets are free, and you go to Ticket Me Sandhills to obtain them.
Ah, okay.
Yep, and there will be, as I mentioned, there'll be a Q&A at the end of each lecture, so that all the audience members can dialogue directly with the speaker.
Cool.
Yeah. So we're going to come back in the second set, and we are going to be speaking with Dr. Scott Bonn and about his work with serial killers. And you know, we have a fascination and a very curious appeal for evil.
Yes, we do.
Don't we?
It's like,
And
yeah, it's
the
a little odd.
world's most, terrifying type of murderers. And he gets into the nitty-gritty about the orientation of these people, where these seeds are sown. So let's come back, and we'll be speaking with Dr. Bonn in the second set. This is All Things Moore County. We'll be right back. Hey, Dr. Bonn, this is Bill Sahadi from All Things Moore County. How are you?
Doing well. How are you?
I'm good. We're looking forward to seeing you in Moore County this coming Tuesday at the Bradshaw Performing Arts Center. We spoke a little bit in the show already about you. You're the lead-off speaker for this lecture series, and I have to tell you, your topic, serial killers and their motivations and their origins, is one of the most compelling I've heard.
Well, I appreciate that, and I'm obviously intrigued by it myself, and I'm really looking forward to the event on Tuesday.
So you're a criminologist. You're an author. How did you evolve into this discipline?
Well, it's a really wonderful question, and I am a little bit different, I would say, than the average criminologist or practitioner or academic who comes at it from the criminological perspective, because my background actually was in communications, and I went to Kent State University in Ohio quite a few years ago, and I originally majored in communications and media because I was fascinated by the way stories are told, the way the news is delivered to the public, and I've been my entire life fascinated with human behavior, both the good and the bad. And I was actually torn at a certain point when I was in working on my bachelor's degree between focusing on journalism specifically or going into criminology. And so I initially went the communications route. And for about 20 years, I actually worked in the media and advertising fields in New York City.
Oh.
And for a while, I worked at NBC Television Network in a sales and marketing capacity. But I was also involved with the news operation there, and I saw how certain stories, and I'm talking about stories like Jeffrey Dahmer, stories like the Menendez brothers, the O.J. Simpson trial, gained traction and became these larger-than-life events. And I was really riveted by that, and how certain personalities, while they may be criminals, become just almost public icons. And it really, really intrigued me. And then some years later, after 9/11, the tragic events of 9/11 in New York, I decided to go back and pursue my other passion, which was criminology. I thought if there's any field that is going to be recession-proof, it's probably crime. A little dark humor there. And I got a PhD in criminology, and I became a college professor. I started studying serial killers, interviewing serial killers, and I saw how they are, again, sort of these public figures that attract attention. And so I put it all together. I put my media background, my criminology background, studying serial killers. I wrote a book that became quite popular, Why We Love Serial Killers, looking at them almost as, these public entities.
Right.
And that eventually evolved into the show that I'm doing now.
You remind me of the movie Bonnie and Clyde. People were fascinated. They started rooting for Bonnie and Clyde as the bad guys in a movie that romanticized the pillaging that they did across the country before they were killed.
Yeah.
What do you attribute the fascination to this underbelly of society that people always seem to be so intrigued by?
Well, again, this is a great, great question, and it's a psychological question, and it's also a sociological question. Why as a society are we drawn to these things? And I think a lot of it has to do with empathy. And I talk about this a bit in my show. We are empathetic creatures, and I'm talking about us humans. And we tend to be drawn to things that are both good and dark. And sometimes we're drawn to things that are larger than life and deadly. There are people that follow tsunamis and storms, that are attracted to predators in nature like great white sharks. We even have a Shark Week on the Discovery Channel. And interestingly, we also have a serial killer week on the Oxygen Channel, which is a true crime network. So there's this tremendous fascination, a societal level fascination. And isn't it interesting that the things that we're drawn to, and now I'm going to go into fiction a little bit, but the villainous figures or monsters in fiction that we are drawn to oftentimes have very, very human characteristics, almost tragic flaws to them. And I'm talking about someone like Dracula or the Frankenstein monster or even King Kong. They're sort of these misunderstood figures that we're drawn to because they have human characteristics. And that gets back to empathy again. And one of the things that you're going to find out if the pattern across the country holds true is that the largest portion of my audience on Tuesday is likely to be comprised of women. And women, I believe, are drawn to true crime because they represent almost like morality plays where something very bad happens and someone is abducted, someone is murdered, and then the search goes on for the predator. But by the end of the hour of this, this drama, whether it's on 48 Hours or 2020 or Dateline, usually the perpetrator is caught and justice prevails, and everyone feels safe by the end of the show. And I think that this is a formula, if you will, or a template that's particularly attractive to women. I have so many women to say to me as I travel the country that they're very concerned about protection. They want to be able to identify potential predators. Mm-hmm. As one woman recently said to me, and it's actually amusing in a very dark way, she says, I don't want to become a victim of the next Ted Bundy, but I certainly don't want to date him or marry him either.
Yeah.
So there is that, it's that empathetic thing, the connection, identifying with the victim, wanting to understand the mind of the perpetrator, being able to identify. I think that goes a long way toward explaining the draw, for many of us.
Yeah, you answered the question as to why the true crime audience is about 75% female. I saw that and I just did a double take.
Yeah, it surprised me even when I first began doing this event and going around the country. Very consistent wherever I go. 75 to 80% women, and again, it's especially that empathy aspect, or the empathy component, I think is particularly strong for women.
Yeah.
I think that goes a long way toward explaining the appeal, but there's other aspects of it too. I mean, many of these stories, particularly the cold cases and the whodunits that just last forever, like the Zodiac and Jack the Ripper. Some of these are just enduring whodunit stories that have attracted a following for decades, if not more than 100 years. And people love to play armchair detective and try to solve these stories. I want to be the one who can finally figure it out. So it's a mystery. It's a mystery that's asking to be solved, and I think that has a draw to it as well. And I'm old enough to remember the old board game Clue, where you try to figure out who killed who. And
me too. I remember that game.
Yeah, it
Giving our age away.
Favorite. It was a favorite as a kid, and so it's about solving the murder, right? And
right.
So we all, I think, have a little bit of Sherlock Holmes in us, and we want to try to figure out who done it.
So as you're speaking, I had this question that just came to my mind. What has the explosion of social media done to the interest and the desire to know more and more and more?
Yeah, well, that's also a great question, and the social media and the 24/7 access to information has I believe just turbocharged the fascination with true crime.
Yeah.
And what it's also allowed is the formation of these web sleuth communities. You have people now that can connect themselves, whether it's around the country or even around the world, on a particular case, and they share information, they share evidence, they debate the possible suspects and details of the case. And so it's taken true crime that I believe has always had an audience. I mean, my grandfather, who would be over 100 years old if he was still alive, read those old tabloid true crime magazines that were kind of considered very lowbrow and sort of stuff. But now it's high production values.
Right.
It's on every major network. It's sort of out of the shadows, if you will.
Yeah.
And the fact that we have these social media communities, it's really created a just this mass audience. And I think that's just so fascinating as well. And some of these web sleuths have actually helped to solve cases. They've actually helped to solve cases, worked with the police, or found a lead that ended up helping to solve cases. So media and the technology itself
right.
has not only fueled the interest, but changed the nature of investigation. So I think it's really quite fascinating.
With the advanced social media presence, there's also an increase in a lot of misinformation, and words come out. And I'd love you to distinguish between the difference between what a psychopath is and what a sociopath is.
Sure, absolutely, absolutely, and it's true. You brought up a real good point. I was talking to a homicide detective friend of mine recently, and I asked him about because of the nature of social media and all the leads and theories and even conspiracy theories that come out about a particular case. Right. And he says, it's kind of like trying to take a drink of water out of a fire hose. There's just too much of it. Some of it could be useful, and yes, I need to wet my palate and I need something, but it's just too much. And a lot of it ends up being just erroneous and incorrect and conspiracies and so forth. So that's a good point. But to answer your question, sociopath versus psychopath, they're both considered antisocial personality disorders for which there really is no treatment. They're not mental illnesses. Many times there's this incorrect assumption that they're mental illnesses. They're not like schizophrenia or psychosis that are actually clinical mental illnesses that can be treated. These are antisocial personality disorders that one really cannot be treated in any way. But that's the bad news. The good news is that they're extremely rare, and in particular, psychopaths. Uh-huh. But the origin of the two of them is where they differ. They do have many things in common. Yeah. When it comes to impulse control, psychopaths, sociopaths, very, very little impulse control. Yeah. When they want to do something, they act out. They're very goal-oriented. They want to satisfy themselves, and no laws or rules or mores are going to stand in their way if they want something. The other thing that they also have in common is the very much a lack of empathy. Yep. And any sort of emotional or sympathetic connection to others. Mm-hmm. They don't mind hurting people along the way to get what they want, so they have these in common. But where they really differ is the actual origin of them.
I got you.
And this gets to nature versus nurture.
Yeah.
A psychopath is a function of nature. They are born that way. They are born with a brain that simply is hardwired differently than the normal brain. It's incapable of impulse control. The psychopathic brain does not have impulse control. No guardrails, no brakes. When they want something, they just go for it.
Yeah.
The other thing is when it comes to empathy, psychopaths don't have that either.
Right.
That's why they can hurt people with impunity. It doesn't bother them. It rolls off their backs like water off a duck. They simply cannot feel the emotional pain, suffering,
right.
Shame, guilt, remorse, pity, even fear. They don't have it. That's why the most dangerous individuals are the psychopaths. Now, the good news is they're extremely rare. Extremely rare. A true psychopath, less than 1% of the U.S. adult population. I mean, it still seems like a lot, but it's less than 1%. Sociopaths, on the other hand, are a function of nurture. They are not born, they are made. They are conditioned that way. They are trained into predatory behavior, normally through receiving tremendous abuse, torment, torture, neglect themselves during their formative years. And they become predators to protect themselves. Now, they are more common. Maybe 8% of the U.S. population would have sociopathic tendencies because, again, they're not born, they're made.
Yep.
But there's good news here, too. Fortunately, there's a little good news, and that is a sociopath is much easier to identify than a psychopath.
Mm-hmm.
Psychopath is going to be below the radar. They're like the shark under the water that you don't see coming because they don't have the emotions that that will identify them or be a red flag. Sociopaths, because they're not born, they're made.
Right.
They do have emotions, and they tend to be volatile. They tend to have tremendous mood swings, and particularly bouts of rage. So a sociopath, when they get triggered, they're much easier to identify than a psychopath.
Yep.
Now, they too are callous, indifferent. They have very low impulse control and very low empathy, but they do have those capabilities, and sometimes those can be the things that raise a red flag when you're around a sociopath.
Okay.
And of serial killers, just taking it, following an extension a little bit,
Yeah.
the majority of serial killers are either psychopaths or sociopaths, at least 80%. But more than half of those that are either psychopaths or sociopaths are psychopaths.
Okay.
So what is the most common personality characteristic for a serial killer? It's a psychopathic personality.
All right. Talk to me a little bit about David Berkowitz or some of the serial killers you have had interaction with.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Well, you mentioned David Berkowitz, the infamous son of Sam who terrorized New York City back in 1976 and 1977. I got to know him very, very well through correspondence and then ultimately interviewing him in person. I spent an entire day with him, and very, very fascinating. He falls into a category of serial killers. Serial killers are not one size fits all and one motivation. It's often thought that one of the myths that I hear very frequently is that they're all driven by sex, motivated by sex, and that's just not true. In the case of David Berkowitz, he was under the illusion or delusion, if you will, the delusion that he was being motivated by Satan to kill. And he had become a devout Satanist, in fact, in his early 20s, and believed that Papa Sam, as he called him, the son of Sam, was Satan himself and driving him to kill. And he believed, as he explained to me, Berkowitz, when we talked in person, he said, I felt like a soldier on a mission. I was being directed to kill by the devil himself, and he thought he would be rewarded for doing that. And so that's a very specific type of serial killer. Now, the thing that is quite fascinating about Berkowitz is he claims also to have had a spiritual rebirth, Christian rebirth, back in 1986. And he says since 1986, when God visited him in his prison cell, he has no longer been the son of Sam serial killer. He is now the son of Hope, who is an evangelist and an apostle almost of God. So he is a do-gooder now. He is a do-gooder, so he says.
How do you process that?
Yeah, well, it's a great question. And I sat with him for the better part of a day as he took me through this. And he is a very different person. He's been in prison now, almost 50 years, and he is a very different human being than he was when he first went into prison. Mm-hmm. And he has this persona now that's almost like a true. He's very small in stature, and he's kind of chubby and bald now. Mm-hmm. And he has this persona about him that's almost like your sort of eccentric uncle. And there's nothing frightening about him anymore. Now this is a new persona that he's taken on. Yeah. But I will tell you, as he tells his story and his evolution from son of Sam to son of Hope, it's a rather compelling and moving story. Uh-huh. Yeah.
Wow. Interesting.
Yeah. I don't want to give too much away because I'm going to talk more about this on Tuesday, but it's a fascinating journey that he took me on. Let's put it that way.
Well, it sounds like you're going to have a packed house, and a lot of very interesting perspectives to offer. And as you said, 75% of your followers are female. So there may be a few husbands that are there along with them. Who knows?
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. In fact, I do a Q&A session during the second act of the show, and I've had questions such as, from men saying, "My girlfriend brought me here this evening. Should I be worried about her?"
Right. So funny. I understand this is going to be your first trip to Moore County in North Carolina.
That's true.
Yeah, you'll love it. It's a great, coming from a guy who was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York, and Bergen County, New Jersey, the lifestyle here and the beauty. There's an old New England charm to the area, which you'll see right away. And this area does remind people of the towns that they grew up in as kids.
Oh, that sounds beautiful. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's going to be like you're walking into a Currier and Ives postcard.
All right. Well, that sounds great. I'm really excited.
Well, Scott, I appreciate the time. I appreciate your going into some of the details of what you're going to be talking about. I wish you the very best, and I hope you'll even consider returning.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me on. It's been a pleasure, and I really look forward to Tuesday.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you so much. Hey, Dorothy. He's a very interesting guy.
Yeah, I think he could have talked for quite some time.
I think I could have put the mic down and just gone outside and gotten some fresh air and come back in, right? No, he had a lot to say, and I think he'll be a very good
I think he's going to have a very interesting talk come Tuesday.
Did you even have an idea that 75% of his audience is generally female?
No, I didn't, but as many times as I've heard husbands complain about their wives watching true crime stories, it kind of doesn't surprise me.
Yeah. He basically said that the common ground amongst his audience is empathy. Mm-hmm. And isn't it interesting when he talked about sociopaths and psychopaths, their lack of empathy?
Yeah.
That I got full throttle. So anyway, Scott Bonn will be speaking this Tuesday evening, September the 23rd. The Bradshaw Performing Arts Center on the campus of Sandhills Community College is playing host. The lecture will begin at 7. And based on what he said, I have a feeling his Q&A sessions will go pretty long.
I do wonder if they are timed, if you have a certain amount of time, or will people be there all night because they're going to continually ask him questions?
Yeah.
I'm sure that people will come out with all kinds of questions.
I agree. I was very grateful for the time in the first set to talk about Ruth Pauley and to try to put a definition behind her.
Give her more than just a name, because I honestly had no idea who she was. I just knew the series was called Ruth Pauley Lectures.
Think about all the people that have moved to Moore County in the last 10 years. They don't know who she was.
Nope.
But this is a good way to personalize her and the legacy that she's left. And again, Scott Bonn will be the first of 5 speakers. And we talked a little bit about all the other speakers. And they will be in October. They'll be in January, I think in March, and one in April.
Yep.
And very interesting lineup this year, so we're looking forward to that. And I'm looking forward to a lot of shows coming up on all things Moore County as we get into what I call the event season.
Yeah,
right?
It's fall, it comes into winter, and all kinds of things start happening. The
best time of the year in Moore County is right now.
It's
starting
the busiest.
Right now.
I say it's the busiest time, that's for sure.
Oh my gosh! So enjoy the beginning, the lineup starting Tuesday night, September the 23rd, with Dr. Scott Bonn, and we will speak with you next week. This is All Things Moore County. Have a great week.